child, and I'm gonna be here for a while. So sit back and enjoy my style as I shine.
Hey, how y'all doing? I've been struggling with the concept of aliens from other worlds for years. I wrote many books on the subject and did a lot of research. Finding ways to debunk the entire notion also intrigued me, but out of all the strangest accounts of UFOs or UAPs that I've studied, which includes Area 51, the 1947 Roswell case, Benny and Bonnie Hill, the Kentucky alien or goblin case with Kelly, the Hopkinsville encounter, Skinwalker Ranch, the Tic Tac case, the Travis Walton story, and of course Bob Lazar. So what makes the aliens from space notion so unbelievable to me is knowing how different planets can be from each other. Their sizes, their specific environments, and gravity. Then there's the biological differences, including diseases. So, in taking with mainstream beliefs that we have already had encounters with creatures from other worlds, we have heard of bug-looking aliens, lizard-looking aliens, and the most commonly gray aliens. All of them are relatively human size, being only a couple of feet shorter or taller than an average human. But we don't find monstrously huge aliens like Godzilla, which keep in step with monstrously huge planets. Or microscopically small aliens. We haven't seen any of these either, with microscopically smaller planets in comparison to Earth. That is strange to me. However, from accounts from so-called credible people, we have aliens that can float through walls. They snatch people right out of their beds, and then they do all these strange sexual experiments on them, wipe their memories, and then what? Like, put them back into their beds? Huh? So, that's why they travel light years to come to Earth? I simply just don't get it. Common sense does not allow me to come to an understanding of this nature, but it does raise more questions. In considering my last video on forgiveness, I read about these angels. They were like interdimensional beings who came to visit our world and impregnate women. Can we start to connect the dots? So here's a passage from the book of Daniel. Take a look. It describes a hand being pushed through from one dimension into ours. And everyone who sees this happen, a hand, well, they call it a disembodied hand, but obviously the hand is connected to a body that we cannot see. And it leaves a message. It also leaves everybody in the room terrified.
Many years passed, and Daniel, now an older man, was still in service to the kingdom of Babylon, when a new king, Belshazzar, came into power. King Belshazzar decided to host a great banquet for thousands of his leaders. During the feast, King Belshazzar had his servants bring out the gold and silver goblets that his father, King Nebuchadnezzar, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. As the king and his nobles drank from these sacred goblets, they praised false gods. Suddenly, a human hand appeared. and one finger began to write on the wall right in front of everyone at the feast. As King Belshazzar watched, he began to shake in fear. The king called for his wise men and said, "Whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means, I will give them riches and power." But the wise men could not read the writing or tell the king what it meant. This made the king even more terrified. Hearing the commotion, the queen came into the banquet hall and said, "Don't be alarmed. There is a man who can help you. He was trusted by King Nebuchadnezzar because of his great insight and wisdom. So much so that Nebuchadnezzar put him in charge of all of Babylon's wise men. His name is Daniel, and if you bring him here, he will be able to tell you what this writing means." When Daniel appeared before King Belshazzar, the king told him, "None of my wise men can read the writing on the wall and tell me what it means. But if you can, I will give you riches and honor beyond your wildest dreams." Daniel answered the king, "You can keep your gifts and give them to someone else, but I will still read the writing for you and tell you what it means." Daniel told King Belshazzar, "God gave your predecessor, King Nebuchadnezzar, absolute power, glory, and splendor. Because of this, all the nations of the earth feared him. He did as he pleased to help or hurt anyone he chose. But Nebuchadnezzar became proud and arrogant, so God stripped him of his throne and his power. Only after this did King Nebuchadnezzar acknowledge that God alone is king over all the earth. But you, King Belshazzar," Daniel continued, "have not humbled yourself, even though you knew all of this. Instead, you have become proud and honored yourself above God. When you brought out the goblets from God's temple, you drank from them and praised false gods who cannot see or hear or understand. In all of this, you did not honor God or his hand in your life. Because of this, God sent the hand and wrote the inscription." "My king," Daniel said, "this the inscription says, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin. Mene means numbered. God has numbered your days and brought them to an end. Tekel means weighed. You have been weighed on the scales, and you have been found wanting. Parsin means divided. Your kingdom is divided and will be given to the Medes and Persians." Just as the king had promised, Daniel was dressed in wealth. That very night, King Belshazzar was killed, and his kingdom was given over to another ruler.
So from the Bible, I find in the book of Ezekiel more strange things that kind of coincide with the strange things we find here on Earth. Maybe you can connect the dots for yourself. Let's take a look.
On the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiakim, the word of the Lord came to Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the Kibar Canal, and the hand of the Lord was upon him there.
As I looked, behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, and a great cloud with brightness around it, and fire flashing forth continually, and in the midst of the fire, as it were, gleaming metal. And from the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance. They had a human likeness, but each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. Under their wings on their 4 sides they had human hands, and the 4 had their faces and their wings thus. Their wings touched one another. Each one of them went straight forward without turning as they went. As for the likeness of their faces, each had a human face. The 4 had the face of a lion on the right side, the 4 had the face of an ox on the left side, and the 4 had the face of an eagle. Such were their faces, and their wings were spread out above. Each creature had 2 wings, each of which touched the wing of another, while 2 covered their bodies. And each went straight forward. Wherever the Spirit would go, they went, without turning as they went. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches moving to and fro among the living creatures. And the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning, and the living creatures darted to and fro like the appearance of a flash of lightning. Now, as I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the earth beside the living creatures, one for each of the 4 of them. As for the appearance of the wheels and their construction, their appearance was like the gleaming of beryl, and the 4 had the same likeness, their appearance and construction being, as it were, a wheel within a wheel. When they went in any of their 4 directions without turning as they went. And their rims were tall and awesome, and the rims of all 4 were full of eyes all around. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went beside them. And when the living creatures rose from the earth, the wheels rose. Wherever the Spirit wanted to go, they went, and the wheels rose along with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When those went, these went, and when those stood, these stood. And when those rose from the earth, the wheels rose along with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Over the heads of the living creatures there was the likeness of an expanse, shining like awe-inspiring crystal, spread out above their heads. And under the expanse their wings were stretched out straight, one toward another, and each creature had 2 wings covering its body. And when they went, I heard the sound of their wings like the sound of many waters, like the sound of the Almighty, a sound of tumult like the sound of an army. When they stood still, they let down their wings. And there came a voice from above the expanse over their heads. When they stood still, they let down their wings. And above the expanse over their heads there was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like sapphire, and seated above the likeness of a throne was a likeness with a human appearance. And upward from what had the appearance of his waist, I saw, as it were, gleaming metal, like the appearance of fire, enclosed all around. And downward from what had the appearance of his waist, I saw, as it were, the appearance of fire, and there was brightness around him, like the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud on the day of rain. So was the appearance of the brightness all around. Such was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard the voice of one speaking.
So whether we have encounters of people confronting angels or aliens, the same common thread seems to come up, where they're terrified by their encounter. If it's an angel, it'll say, "Do not be afraid," and then it'll go on with a message. If it's an alien, it says the same thing. "Do not be afraid. I am here for your planet's well-being." Why? Why would an alien care about our planet? Don't they have their own planet? Aren't there gazillions of other planets that they can go to? So what would be the interest in ours? Scholars believe that angels once had dominion over the planet Earth. But it is humans who have dominion over it now, according to the Bible. One thing I've heard of is that when people get captured aboard an alien spacecraft, or they have an encounter with these creatures coming into their home, if they cry out, "Dear Lord, save us. God, protect us. Please, Lord Jesus, help us and save us at this time," it has an effect on aliens, and they turn and they back away. So, again, I'm just connecting the dots. I find after humans implement prayer, the aliens back away if they're hostile, or they will just return them to their homes. I don't believe these creatures are aliens at all, that they came from another planet, and you know I don't believe that there are any female angels. So what are they? Well, again, we need to revisit the first human, Adam. When God first made Adam and Eve, they had bodies of light. If we could see Adam and Eve, they wouldn't look like humans to our eyes. For one thing, it's possible, looking at the evidence, that they were much larger than people are today. They'd be like 20 feet tall if you compare them to one of us future folk. Keeping to this notion, it would seem that over the generations and thousands of years, we humans have become much smaller since the day we were created. Now we know that Noah and his family did not have any Nephilim blood in their veins. This is one of the reasons that they were spared from the Great Flood. They were pure-blooded humans, but in this documentary we find where it is widely believed to be Noah's Ark. Near this site there are stones arranged that look like a dwelling, and other stones arranged that look like an altar. But the most intriguing find to me was a sarcophagus containing bones of Noah's wife that measured 15 feet tall.
In the nearby village of Arsap, they examined so-called drogue and anchor stones that they believed were once attached to the ark. Now, drogue and anchor stones were common in ancient ships and hung down below to stabilize them in the rough waters of the open seas. These drogue stones here are massive in size and are believed to be from Noah's Ark. Fossil kept repeating that no matter what the experts said, there was too much evidence at the Drupanar site for it to be dismissed. He remained convinced it was the fossilized remains of Noah's Ark. Due to the amount of evidence, in 1987, the Turkish government declared the site to be Noah's Ark, and a visitor center was constructed. It was preserved and called Noah's Ark National Park. From 1987 to 1997, Ron Wyatt and others like Alan Roberts and David Fossil continued to research the site. It should be noted that Ron Wyatt was the most influential person and worked the hardest and was the most involved in the research and promotion of this site. In late 2014, the Turkish government granted permission to allow the site of the boat-shaped object to be scanned using the latest deep penetration resistivity ground imaging technique known as electrical resistivity tomography, or ERT. The scans were carried out by John Larson. This was the first time equipment able to reach 125 feet or 38 meters deep with sufficient resolution was used on the site to acquire 3D images of the structure that remains beneath the ground. Resistivity imaging is a technique that was developed during the 1920s for deep oil and mineral exploration. More recently, new equipment has become available with vastly improved resolution capabilities, to the extent where now it has become an effective tool in the field of archaeology. Using this technology, the scans appear to provide more evidence that this site is a man-made object that fits the biblical measurements and descriptions of Noah's Ark. Now also, interestingly, what is believed to be the remains of Noah's home, the grave of Noah's wife, gravestone markers, a stream by Noah's home that would have provided water for planting crops, vineyards, and animal husbandry, and a large rock that many believe was the altar Noah used for sacrificing animals to God has been discovered in the town of Arsap. The remains of Noah's home are believed to be located here in this area. It was once somewhat erected but has been torn down over the years by treasure hunters. A sarcophagus was discovered by Ron Wyatt in this area as well. Now, a sarcophagus is a stone coffin or container, and it was used to hold the skeletal remains of a person who was about 15 feet or 4.5 meters tall. So in this area were the skeletal remains of a person, and it's believed these remains were those of Noah's wife. It's believed before the flood that the people and animals were much bigger as they lived longer. The sarcophagus has been hauled off by treasure hunters and sold on the black market. However, its depression in the ground is still visible today. It's also believed the jewelry that Noah's wife was once wearing was robbed and sold on the black market for millions of dollars. Some of the skeletal remains have survived and reveal the size of the person who was in the grave. 2 tombstones were found in front of what is believed to be Noah's home. On one of the tombstones found by Ron Wyatt, it had carvings of 8 people, a rainbow, and a dove on it. This tombstone is believed to be that of Noah's wife, as the second largest person is looking down with her eyes closed.
The proof is out there. Are you looking for it? Jesus says, "He who seeks, finds." It is so true. After the fall of Adam and Eve, after they ate of the forbidden fruit, I think they look like we do, only they were still super tall. They would know that they were super tall, not between the immense thousands of years between us. And now, about aliens. Whenever they're described and they don't have any clothing, they are also described without any genitalia. And this is not so odd if they are, in fact, fallen angels who lost their light of God's glory from their bodies as humans have. What would an angel look like if he had lost his light? Looking at the concepts of aliens based on the descriptions of abductees, I believe we are given a pretty good idea. Likely, these images are spot on. What I think these aliens, or lack of light angels, are trying to do is use humans to create female angels, and, through them, an offspring, to preserve their species. More recently, governments are reporting full disclosure accounts supporting the existence of alien beings from other worlds. So governments seem to be gearing up to convince the world somehow that the events described by Jesus pertaining to the rapture will be somehow explained away as a mass alien abduction event. So what do you think?
Meanwhile, at the mall, Chloe is watching a group of break dancers when she realizes her younger brother is missing. She begins desperately searching for him and finds him playing with a toy plane. The two leave the plane salesman behind with his plane and go to the food court. Chloe tells her brother what a great baseball player he is and the two hug. Mid-hug, Chloe's younger brother is gone. All that remains is his clothes and bag. The same thing has happened to all of the kids and some of the adults in the mall. Meanwhile, the same thing happened on the plane. All the kids are gone and some adults, including the co-pilot. The horrified passengers begin screaming, and a group of 3 men rushes to the pilot's room. Cameron, who has been on board the flight, gets up and holds them off. Rayford turns up the pressure in the cabin to get everyone to sit down, and the oxygen masks drop down. Rayford tells everyone to buckle up and put on their oxygen masks. He attempts to radio for help and is unable to reach anyone. The cell phones aren't working either. Meanwhile, Chloe is still searching for her brother. A car with no driver crashes through the front window. Looters steal someone's money. Chloe gets out into the parking lot where hordes of terrified people are running seeking those who were lost. Cars keep crashing. A one-man plane crashes into Rayford's car just as Chloe is about to get in. Chloe runs down the street, and two robbers steal her brother's bag. A school bus crashes off the bridge above Chloe. Chloe runs down to help and realizes that the bus is empty. Meanwhile, the passengers of Rayford's flight have been able to take off their oxygen masks and are arguing about what might have happened to the other passengers. Theories of alien abduction, wormholes, and that the passengers are just invisible are offered up.
What in the world? Dad, come on, wake up. Don't leave me.
Or if truth isn't your thing, maybe you'll feel inclined to interpret the rapture more like this. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. May God richly bless you. And until next time, take care. Bye for now. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms.